Hey guys, it's Tobin. Thanks for checking out the channel. Please subscribe. That means a lot to me. Miami Heat. Well, what are we? We're less than a month away from Miami Heat Media Day and training camp. It's closing here. Like an old friend, it'll be here before you know it. I saw some Heat fans getting all bothered because Christian Wood woke up this morning and it was like, rolled over. Christian Wood signs with the Lakers. And I know that was like one of the hot names that was there around the rumor mill that Christian Wood was going to be signing with the Miami Heat and that he was going to be pairing up with Damian Lillard. So what does this mean? Damian Lillard's not coming? Does this mean did he run out of patience? Could he not wait? Does this mean that Damian Lillard's not going to come? Where are we at? What does this mean? I don't know. What do we do? I will say, look, man, I'm not going to lose a wink of sleep because Christian Wood decides he's going to go play with the LA Lakers as opposed to the Miami Heat. I'm not going to be doing that for any of these role guys that are out there for the Miami Heat because I really just trust the team when it comes to filling in the cracks and filling in those parts of the team when it comes to that time. And if you miss out on a Christian Wood, okay, bummer. He's a good player. I don't want to take a dump on the guy. Like, very clearly an offensive prowess, an ability to score from the big man spot like none other. I mean, the guy's averaged over 20 at some point in his career, mostly on garbage teams. But with whatever minutes he got, the guy goes out there and he puts up points. All the off the court stuff is like, sometimes he's tardy, not the best at it, whatever. I always say with the Miami Heat, I feel like with any of these guys, people say he's not a Heat culture fit. He's not a culture fit. I always feel like with the Miami Heat, they can get that short term out of anybody. Shaq wasn't a Heat culture fit, but he was elite, but it had a shelf life. If James Harden were to come to the Heat, I wouldn't love it. I'm not a big James Harden guy, but I bet your ass for a season they could probably get James Harden and the best out of James Harden. I bet you they could. Would it be something that lasts for 5 years? No. I will actually say in defense of James Harden, by the way, I saw this story, this dump that ESPN tried to do on James Harden's behavior. James Harden had to come out because they were like, James Harden was pouting because he wasn't an all-star. And he said lies. And then there was a story that James Harden wanted to go out and enjoy Miami life and that he would travel separately from the team. And Doc Rivers didn't like that, which I also found out because I'm pretty sure I remember at one point, I don't remember what podcast it was on, but I feel like Doc Rivers talked about letting James Harden do the Dennis Rodman with Vegas at one point this year. I feel like that was a thing. So they're trying to make it seem like Doc Rivers didn't like that. I feel like you know what you're getting with James Harden. James Harden likes to party. James Harden loves strip clubs. He's James Harden. And also it's an organization that, again, the Philadelphia 76ers, it's not like they didn't know about James Harden. Their general manager has gone to bat for James Harden harder than anybody ever has gone to bat for James Harden in the history of James Harden. So I found that all very odd that they're trying to hose James Harden down. I wonder if there's ever going to be an article like that with Damian Lillard. Probably not. Seems like an A+ dude. But I will say, the Christian Wood thing, I'm not going to get crazy with. And honestly, in all honesty, let's just say I talked about this with that whole 10th seed thing, but I'm excited to see what the Heat guys can do that they got. I'm excited to see what they can get from Nikola Jovic and what they can get from Orlando Robinson and what those guys are going to develop into and seeing where they can help fill this team out in certain roles. And I think that's one of the specialties of this team. And you saw the summer that Orlando Robinson had. You see the summer that Nikola Jovic is having. That's why when people say things like, they lost Max Strus and Gabe Vincent, it's like, well, first of all, you guys didn't respect those guys. And second of all, you don't think the Miami Heat can get more out of Jaime Jaquez if they had to, or they couldn't get more out of Caleb Martin if they had to? And I'll tell you another thing. Let's just say no moves happen. One guy who's completely slept on with this team, and I thought had a really nice postseason, and I was very, very thrilled with, was Duncan Robinson. Duncan Robinson had this year where he becomes the all-time Miami Heat 3-point leader, deals with his first real major injury, tried to play through it this year, ripped it up in a jersey, his thumb, his hand, and then goes away for a while, basically falls out of the rotation. We know that he's been, losing playing time, going even back to last playoffs when Max Strus had basically taken his gig. And you go from this beloved story of summer league, wearing number 62, D3 guy, undrafted, to the biggest undrafted contract of all time, to what the hell happened to Duncan Robinson? Where's he been? Where did he go? And I just thought that this postseason, I don't know what it was about Dunks, but we saw, first of all, a Duncan Robinson who was a much more complete player, was blowing past guys, was setting his teammates up, had some beautiful passes, seemed to shake dudes out of his shoes, and and got back to shooting. I mean, in a postseason where the Heat are going to the finals and are getting all the way there, Duncan Robinson spent this postseason shooting 44% from downtown. And it's well, that's the guy we all kind of fell in love with. Not to mention the fact that he was out there chirping and taunting the Celtics fan, giving him the Hulk Hogan ear. Not to mention he was out there in the finals mean mugging, giving you the old Duncan Robinson face to tie things up, get the lone win in that series, and just had these moments, and you just felt like Duncan Robinson. I don't know what it was. I don't know if it was the benchings. I don't know if it was the adversity. I don't know. But I felt like we had a freer Duncan Robinson. I felt like Duncan Robinson let it go. I felt like Duncan Robinson went from aw shucks to no fucks. That's where he was. We went from aw shucks Duncan Robinson to no fucks given Duncan Robinson. And I loved that for Duncan Robinson. This is the guy I think we were all waiting for. This is the guy that I think we were hoping was yes, this is the attitude that you want from Duncan Robinson. Not to hold your head down. And Duncan Robinson kind of can be at times a bad body language guy, and I don't mean that in terms of he was a moper, but I think you could see visibly, oh man, seemed it seemed like he wore his disappointments more so than other guys did. And you think about going into this year, you lose Max Strus, you lose Gabe Vincent, and one of the things that you do lose with those guys is, hey, those guys are red hot from downtown. They are dynamic floor stretchers. Those guys can absolutely be, what's the word that Spo uses, ignitable all the time. And that is one thing the Heat are going to lose, and especially if they don't have Duncan Robinson. You have Tyler Hero, who can do that, but you're going to need some of that. You're going to need those guys who can go out there, can give you 4 from downtown on a certain night. And I just feel like he's just kind of the guy who's laid under the weeds and all this. Yeah, he might be in the trade rumors. He might be in the deals. I don't know. I mean, there's so many machinations of this deal and non-deal really is what it is. I don't know if you guys saw or listened to Zach Lowe's podcast, but Zach Lowe's I've heard there's no calls at all. Same thing with Windhorst or the local guys or whomever. There really has been no movement on this. So just assuming that we sit here in 4 weeks and we're at media day roaming around, number 55 is probably going to be rolling around there, the all-time Heat 3-point leader. And you have to wonder to yourself, did this postseason run change Duncan Robinson? Did this turn him into a cold-blooded, heartless, no f***s given person who can go out there and be the assassin that we all fell in love with? Because I'll tell you something, when you saw a lot of blowouts that this Heat team got into, a lot of it had to do with Duncan Robinson. Did he get off to a monster start? And somewhere along the way, between confidence and money and all that stuff and expectations, it changed. It changed somewhere. And then Max Strus was taking his buckets, and he lost his starting job to Max Strus. Well, now Max Strus is gone, and he has to go suffer his life in Cleveland. Sorry, Max. Handsome as you may be, Cleveland just makes you uglier. And you look at Dunks, and you're like, oh, yeah. Let's just not act like the guy who is one of the best shooters on the planet isn't still on the roster right now and can provide a lot of what Max Strus did. So, and Max did not have a fantastic playoffs as far as shooting was concerned. It wasn't like Max Strus was going out here and lighting the world on fire. He went out there and really he shot 32% from three this past playoffs. Like, it wasn't this all-world shooting performance from Max, but you know that Max provides the other stuff. He competes his ass off on defense and all that stuff, but like ultimately like wasn't this monster productive player for the Miami Heat this past postseason. And it was noticeable. It was a noticeable thing that it felt like Duncan Robinson, when he was in there during the postseason, gave the Heat a nice boost and provided them something. I thought it was, and I wonder if there's a carryover from that. I wonder if there is a positive effect from that, from the guy that Duncan Robinson was on this finals run, and if that carries over. I think it does. I think it could. We saw some things that improved. We saw some. We knew that the ability to shoot was always there, but now a guy who's even more confident in his ability to put it on the floor, blow past people who are sleeping on him. You know that you can't go and chase him off and just think that, oh, that's going to be an easy move for you now because you can just sell out on Duncan Robinson. Yeah, the thing that's always going to be an issue with him is defense, and wondering, he still gets, no respect from officials. This man is the most. I would argue that Duncan Robinson is the most disrespected man in the history of officiating. I think the only person who could probably compete with him is Goran Dragic, and that's only because Goran Dragic's broken tooth once got called for a foul. But other than that, Duncan Robinson and just his mere existence usually just gets referees chirpy on their whistle. I do wonder, though, he was one of kind of the unsung things of this postseason run, and between Duncan Robinson had a swagger to him in this playoffs. He did. And we know the connection that he has with Bam Adebayo. Those guys, it's like listening to beautiful music be made, watching those two on the court together. They just get each other. They just get each other. And so, yeah, you guys could sit here, you can pat about not having Christian Wood, and national media pundits can sit here and cry and whine about Max Strus and not being there. And Max Strus, look, forever grateful to Max Strus. If it wasn't for that performance in the play-in, there would be no resurgence Duncan Robinson. I know that Max Strus, we all know what he could do when he does get that green light and when he does get hot. And one thing that we know with Max Strus that was always maybe different than Duncan is when things weren't going great, Max Strus would never stop shooting. He just keeps shooting. It doesn't matter what the situations were. And Gabe's a lot like that. But this playoff run, there was just something I think that was awoken in Duncan Robinson that I'm curious to see what is that going to be like when it comes back this year.